Just let me know when.
When?
Hello, everybody. It's Thursday, July 6th, 2017, and you're listening to the Talking Games podcast. I'm Bobby Shortle. I'm here with Justin Townsend.
I am returned.
Kelsey Lavati.
Hello.
And Mr. Hugh Perry.
Hello.
Oh, we're all back here, and we're just had the 4th of July weekend for the two of us. Don't worry about it.
And
for the two of us,
gone.
and Kelsey's gone out of our
She was
video
like,
chat.
"Fuck you and your American holidays.
Yeah,
I'm out of here."
I'm sure she'll return.
She's
but...
mad that we didn't talk about Canada turning 150 years old.
Oh well, happy birthday, Canada.
I guess.
But when was that?
A couple days ago.
Okay, Canada was a couple days ago.
Us over here in Britain are going, "Really, kids?"
Yeah. There's that great Eddie Izzard bit when he talks about like the
I'm
people in
from
America
Europe,
being
where
like,
history's from.
yeah, he goes, this building stands how it did over 50 years ago, like in America.
There's just a quick aside. I saw something on Reddit this weekend, and I think it was Stephen Colbert talking to Hugh. What was his name from House?
Hugh Laurie.
Yes.
Hugh Laurie.
And so Hugh Laurie is saying, like, I think jazz is the best thing that the America has given to the world. And Colbert goes, do you know what the best thing England gave to the world is? America. But that was pretty good.
That's pretty good. Welcome back, Kelsey.
Sorry. I don't know what happened. My computer just restarted by itself.
Oh, wow.
Did it try and force an update? Because that happens.
No, I don't know what it is. It was weird. It just went back to like the start screen. It was weird. It's okay.
All right. It's all right. Off to a smooth start.
As always.
It's as always for us. So this week, we're going to really focus on one major thing, which is we've just passed June, just passed the halfway mark of the year. And we're going to kind of check in and talk about our favorite games of the year so far in 2017. That was a very loud motorcycle just went by.
I really need to move.
I thought it was someone's stomach rumbling.
Could also be that I'm hungry.
So we each have games, hopefully an ordered list of games, per my instructions.
I put my ordered list in the doc. Thank you very much.
Oh, I didn't want to see anybody's ordered list. I wanted to be surprised.
Oh, well.
So
Surprise.
But hopefully there's an ordered list of max 5. If people want to do less, they can do less. But max 5 games, favorite 5 games of the year. And we're going to spend most of the show just talking about that because there's a lot of stuff to get to. There's games that maybe we haven't talked about as much, especially Justin, who misses every other week. Kind of sometimes his games get lost in the shuffle, or he's playing something a lot one week, and then the week he comes back, he's not playing it so much anymore.
It's true.
So
I have one of those I could actually talk about very quickly.
Which I'm guessing is Prey.
It's Prey.
Yeah.
Since I've beaten it.
It's not on your list.
It's not on my list.
Okay.
It might sneak in at the end of the year, somewhere at the end.
Okay.
So yes, I've completed Prey.
All right.
I let everyone on Twitter know that I had beaten it, and it is one of the more frustrating games I've ever played. It's parts of it are amazing, totally excellent, but it is marred by loading times. It was one of my early complaints about the game when I first started playing it. But at that point, like, loading times are bad, but I wasn't transitioning from level to level or hub to hub as often and as quickly as I was at the end of the game. Because, you're exploring, you're looking around, you're poking at things. Towards the end of that game, you are transferring from hub to hub to hub because there's no fast travel station. So, yeah, you can go outside and go float around in space and try and cut your way through. But if you haven't opened up all the airlocks, that's not an option.
Right.
So you might have to for you to hit your objective, go to where you have to go, you might have to sit through 4 loading screens at 1.5 minutes each.
Oof.
So you might run through an area in 20 seconds. That your original time when you were exploring the area is no big deal because you were going in all these rooms and all these side rooms off those rooms and picking up stuff. So you might have spent like an hour in there. But when you're just cutting through, it was like, I'm going from A to B in 10 seconds or 15 seconds and then waiting another 1.5 minutes.
Right.
And then to do that all over again 30 seconds later was frustrating to say the least. It's such a shame because I enjoyed the story. I enjoyed the combat. It is one of the more difficult first-person shooters I've ever played. I played it on normal. The choice that they give you of either crafting ammunition or health packs is a tough one. because you're either running around hoping to find one of those things just laying around in the environment, and there are times when it just does not show up. So you're using things like, I'm picking up this giant tape deck that's like 800 pounds and throwing it at enemies. That's what you're left with sometimes. And you could do stealth, but I just didn't build towards stealth with like their special abilities and stuff. So yeah, like I think Prey the game is awesome. I think Prey the loading times is really bad, and the truth of that game falls somewhere in the middle.
Right. Yeah.
So
that's a shame.
Those speed runs that have finished the game in 7 minutes, like 6.5 of those were
I haven't
loading
actually.
times.
Yeah, I haven't actually watched one of those yet because I'm really interested to see how they do it.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, there's just a lot to like there, and it's just one of those things where the technical issue on consoles, because as you said to me, loading times on PC are not bad at all.
Yeah.
It just mars the experience.
Yeah. I've been considering it's on today's the last day, actually, when we're doing this. It is today's the last day of the Steam sale. And I've been considering buying it on Steam because it's like $35 right now. On Steam.
If I was guaranteed that the loading times were fine on there, I would tell you to go ahead and do that. That's why I didn't give it to you. We were going to do that trade program.
Yeah.
Like, Bobby's going to sit through this once and never again. So, yeah, I would pick it up on PC. On PS4, it really goes with what your patience for loading times are like.
Yeah, and you're playing on a Pro,
and I'm playing on a Pro.
We should say that, so that doesn't even help it.
No.
Yeah, I've heard the loading times are abysmal.
Abysmal.
Yeah.
Dark Souls felt like nothing compared to these.
You mean Bloodborne?
Bloodborne, sorry.
Yeah. I get you. Whew, that's rough. So that's I guess an honorable mention for the top 5 of the first half of the year.
It was really good. Just, man.
Yeah, it's a shame.
It is.
So we're going to jump into the game stuff very, very soon and very quickly. But we have one listener question. I figured it's been on the docket for a while, and I've been meaning to ask it, and we just have kind of run out of time each time. So I'm going to do that first before we jump in. I see Hugh and Justin's lists here.
Hugh, did you just add your list? I looked before.
Maybe in about the last hour.
Oh, okay.
All right, acceptable.
All right. This is from this email was from Luciano, and it says, "Hey TG crew, hope all is well. I haven't written in a while, but wanted to say good job on the new format of the show. I have enjoyed your recent topic sessions as well as the lightning rounds. He congratulates me on my upcoming bundle of joy. He has also a question for us. I've recently been playing Injustice 2, and I'm really enjoying it. I enjoy fighting games and take the time to improve my combat skills. Having said that, I never play online. Recently, I have heard a lot about this game's difficulty keeping the competitive fighting game community happy. I personally do not watch or follow any competitive gaming scene, nor do I watch much online gaming such as Twitch or YouTube. How much do games need to balance their commitment to delivering a quality game to regular gamers, and how much they need to cater to the competitive and streaming communities? Do you think that these two goals conflict in a way that the game is held back from being the best it could in either of those two areas? Thanks for the great work, guys. I never miss an episode. Luciano." So thank you, Luciano.
Hello, old friend.
About that. So it's an interesting question, right? And I want to throw it over to the group in a second. I think the biggest recent example of this negatively affecting the game in general was Street Fighter V. They launched that game kind of feature incomplete, no story mode, none of like in-game currency wasn't working. They basically got it out in its bare bones format so that the fighting game community, the professional community, could play it at tournaments, and so they could continue sort of their reign as kind of top in these tournaments. And the game initially caught on in those scenes, and now is not huge there, and it's been completely dismissed by most of the normal sort of casual fighting game community because it was so bad at launch as far as its feature set that people were soured on it. And I know that I didn't even think about buying it because of all of those things. And so I think that it can hurt the game. I don't think it happens always, but that's definitely one example of how it can negatively affect, I think, a game compared to the two communities, and end up negatively affecting both, I think. Q, what do you think?
I think with like existing IPs like Street Fighter V, you've got to respect the fact that you've got a hardcore fan base already in place there who will have been playing your game possibly since they were kids. Like, Street Fighter has been around since, that was the first game I ever played on my Super Nintendo. So I think you've kind of basically got to have some sort of focus on either you set your game up to be aimed at being competitive, or you set it up just to be played, socially or solo, combination of the both. So like Overwatch works perfectly as both because of the nature of the game. You can say the same for like COD, whether you're a fan of that game or not. Whereas a game like Battlefield, the game modes in that don't really lend themselves so much to the competitive side or esports. And a similar thing with PUBG, really. Like, that game perfectly finds that mix as well. Like, it's great on your own, it's good with friends, but we're already starting to see, pro tournaments. Like, there was what was the one the other week? It was like COD versus Counter-Strike.
Yeah, they're
Pros.
professional Call of Duty players playing against professional Counter-Strike players.
Yeah.
In Battlegrounds.
And they actually
Weird.
won real life chicken dinner.
Yeah.
So I think I think a lot of it is down to the development of the game and just being like they need to decide early on. A, does this game have an existing fan base because the IP already exists, and B, like, what are we aiming this towards? Are we aiming it to be an esports / competitive game, and go down that route? So I think it's just more about like the focus. They need to focus on what it needs to be and go for that, and nothing else really.
Yeah, I mean, Kelsey, do you have any thoughts on this? I know you don't watch a lot of competitive stuff, but I know that you do watch Let's Plays and other kind of streams.
I sort of agree with you. Like, for myself personally, I think the reason why I appreciated Injustice and Overwatch so much as games themselves is because they were easy to get into as someone who doesn't play them quite as frequently. And I think, in on the other hand, I can understand how it could be frustrating sometimes if you already have that love for the series, and then it sort of tries to hook on to newer players and doesn't really adapt to the way you've grown as a gamer, and it can be frustrating sometimes. So in a way, I'm happy that sometimes but it's like you said, how Overwatch did it in the beginning and it was established, and that how it was going to be. And I think that if they establish that in the beginning before they send out the game, it would be better received by everyone.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think you're absolutely both are correct about that. Justin, do you have any thoughts on this?
I mean, it's just I read his question wrong originally. I thought this was when I saw balance. I was like, oh, he's talking about balance changes, and I had like a whole train of thought on that. And then as you reread it, I'm like, oh, I'm completely wrong. But for me, I come back to games like Evolve. Like, I think Evolve was an interesting concept, and like a good game. But I feel like 2K's problem with Evolve, or Turtle Rock's problem with Evolve, was that they pushed so hard for esports, because it is like, that the market is emerging daily, and they're still trying to find the right footing for the games. Like Overwatch doesn't have like a huge esports presence right now because they have their own league going, and then there's sign-up fees and things like that. But Overwatch concentrated itself on making a good game first.
Yeah. Whereas
Evolve kind of just went really hard into the esports push. And then there's not a problem with that if you have a good foundation. I'm trying to think of other games that have like that type of foundation to build upon. Like, yeah, Street Fighter V was a mess when it came out, but I don't think it was a mess in the competitive scene because of the fact it didn't have a story mode or top-notch training modes.
Yeah.
It was a mess because its netcode was a disaster.
Yeah.
So that was a thing of like them just throwing it out there unfinished, and that's why that game has suffered. Injustice is having a bunch of problems because they've introduced loot to a fighting game, which is, like, as far as I know, a first. And I know they can disable that stuff in ranked play, but there's always going to be characters that you feel are like wildly overbalanced and things like that. I look at ARMS. ARMS is a game that it has a pretty bare bones package to begin with. And it's up to you to decide if that package is right for you at the price point that it's at. You know, there's an emerging competitive scene with that as well. Like there is a ranked mode. I've entered that mode and played it for a little bit. But it's like this weird balance of, hey, do you think that this product is good at its baseline or in its foundation, and then build upon that and to go into, you know, that esports or, you know, that real competitive scene. That foundation needs to be there first. And you could look at like 50 games within the last 2 years where they tried to make a push, and because that foundation wasn't there, it failed. So the foundation has to be there first. So that would be my suggestion to developers. Build that foundation.
I think you're right, because I think that, I mean, you saw that game that they showed the Microsoft conference, right? The Darwin Project
or
whatever it was.
Darwin Project.
Where they didn't tell anything about the game, and they had a guy shoutcasting the game, and that was it, and then they went away. And their primary push on that is then this is an esports thing. And the really successful esports don't start out as something that people go like, this is going to be an esport. You know, like you said, you have to make a great game first and then let the community develop around it. You can't shortcut your way
into esports.
You just can't do it. Like, you know, you need a big player base, you need a dedicated player base, and you need a game that people love to play and also love to watch. And those are hard things to come up with, you know. I think a game like Injustice, as Luciano was talking about, I think that it's a game that kind of perfectly deals with that thing by basically being like, there is basically a mode that is meant for people to play competitively, and then everything else is meant for the person who buys it out of the box and just wants to play the game.
Yeah.
And I think that's the best way to be about it.
Exactly.
Yeah, you look at something like Battlegrounds. You mentioned Battlegrounds. I don't think they could have ever guessed that when they developed that game that it would become this big in the streaming world. I know, and I'm sure you knew it would be popular because the mods have always been popular and the games it was born out of were popular.
Not this popular,
but it's constantly the second most watched game on Twitch, behind League of Legends, and it's professional tournaments. It's not as easy as most competitive games would be, where it's like, okay, there's a team of 5-on-5 or whatever. There's 100 people. You know, some of the times it's free for all, sometimes it's a squad, but it's not the kind of game that is tailor made to be a competitive game. But it took off on itself, and that scene is developing around itself. And I think that that's the kind of thing that these people should strive for. Make a great game. And if your community really loves your game, it will eventually get there.
I mean, if you make a great game, it's going to just get there.
Yeah.
Because people are going to be drawn to a great game, and then by osmosis, it's going to be entering that scene. Which is what is happening with Battlegrounds.
Yeah, and also absolutely. There's that thing of like if you make a game where winning takes a lot of skill, like winning a round of PUBG, you've got to be, you know, there's so much that you need to be aware of. You've got to be tactically sound. You know, you've got to be good at shooting, and there's a hell of a lot of skill in that game. And I just think that if you make a game that isn't so much necessarily like Bobby said, that you don't think that it was meant to be an esport when they created it, but purely because of the level of skill required to win a round of it, it then becomes sort of like, okay, let's get a big group of people who are really fucking good at video games and see who the best is. And like you say, it happens. It's a natural progression from one thing to the other then.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you, Luciano. It's a really, really good question. And it's been on our doc like every week for the last, I think, month. And we just have run out of time before we got into it. So I wanted to make sure we got to it before we dived into our... And
keep sending in those questions.
Yes. games@talkingcomicbooks.com or talking_games on Twitter. The two places you should definitely do that. So let's talk about the games of 2017 that we've loved so far. It's been a pretty great year already. I think most years this would have been a great year in the first 6 months.
Yeah, this would have been a fantastic year.
Yeah. And we're only halfway through it. We've got some big games coming, and then a couple of weeks we're going to look forward to those games as well and talk about the games we're excited for the rest of the year. But today's all about the games that have already come out, and some of the games we've talked about a lot, some games we haven't talked about quite as much. But it's interesting to kind of get the lay of the land, the temperature of the room, and see what we're thinking and get ready for the fights that are inevitably going to happen in December when we do our Game of the Year podcast. What I want to do is we'll run this sort of how I used to run like list stuff on this show, Art Talking Comics. We'll go 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. If you have one that's at 5 and it's lower on somebody's list, we'll talk about it when we get to the lower on the list. So if it's like if Justin had Resident Evil 5, let's say at number 5, and Hugh had it at number 2, Justin said, "Oh, Resident Evil 7 is my number 5." Justin said, Hugh would just say, "It's later on my list." And we wait till we get to Hugh for everybody to talk about it. Okay. So we're not re-talking about games.
Sounds good.
Constantly. So I'm gonna get my list up here because I have a doc with my list. But let's start. Kelsey, first of all, do you have 5 games that you want to talk about? No. Okay. How many games do you have to talk about?
Just 3.
Just 3. Okay. So
it's the magic number.
You're gonna be excluded from the first 2 go arounds here. I mean, you can obviously talk about the games that we talk about, but we'll do your 3, 2, 1 when we get to 3, 2, 1.
Also, I want to mention a couple of games that maybe we missed.
No.
Well, we're gonna do it anyway.
No.
Sorry, seniority comes into play.
Actually, I can trump you all there. Thank you very much.
I'm sorry, what?
No, he means seniority on the podcast,
on the
not
podcast,
seniority in
I
age.
was going to say, well, and that.
All right, so let's start with you, Hugh. What's your 5th favorite game so far of this year?
My number 5, and I anticipate it maybe being a bit higher on your list, Bobby, is Resi 7.
That's actually also my number 5.
Oh, there we go then.
It's my number 15.
Let's talk about Resident Evil 7.
That might show up on my end of the year list.
Your top 10.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Sneaking at the end.
We got a lot of games left to go this year.
In any other year,
yeah,
it would probably end up in there.
Yeah. In any other year, most years it would have been probably my number 2 or number 1 for the first half of a year. But it's my number 5. It's a complete return to form for the series, and it also takes the series, I think, to a different level than it's ever been at as far as sophistication of storytelling and of gameplay, while still retaining the puzzle solving aspects of the original games. Like, it still feels like a Resident Evil game, even more so than something like Resident Evil 4 felt like, which is a high watermark obviously for the series, but it took the series in a very different direction, right? And which it kept going in 5 and then way off the rails in 6. 7 feels like, even though it's in first person, it feels like 1 and 2 again, or Code Veronica again, where you're having to solve interesting puzzles. Sometimes it's more of an adventure game than even an action game. The only reason it's lower on my list is because, just like all Resident Evil games, the part where you're doing the shooting part of it is not the best part of playing a Resident Evil game.
Agreed.
It's that part is not the best.
Yeah.
But the atmosphere and stuff is great.
Some of the boss battles, I like watching Justin play it. I was just like thinking to myself, these boss battles were frustrating as fuck. It's got to be said.
It's the worst part of that game.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the boss battles build into a crescendo of freaking awful.
Yeah.
I mean, if you take out the last 2 boss battles, I could be like, I would think like, okay, like I'm fine with the way that they laid them out. When you were first fighting Jack, his first 2 boss battles, I thought they were excellent. Yeah. They were terrifying. You felt weak and powerless. Spoilers for that game. But at those last 2 boss battles, and even when you're fighting
Marguerite,
like Marguerite gets up into the crazy territory. The last 2 boss battles are just ridiculous. Just like don't fit in with the rest of the game at all, and like it ended like the horror experience for me of it. Like that feel like scary feeling like I'm gonna die. Like it was just a frustrating like. I'm fighting a tentacle monster. Hooray!
Yeah. And I think that's what keeps it from being higher on the list for me is I think the end section of that game, it's almost as if they got to a point where they were like, we really need to wrap this up, so we're going to just push you towards the end, and the final boss battles are just going to be like, especially the last one, there's not going to be any real sort of like finesse to it. It's just going to be sort of like you're not even able to move around. You just aim and just hold the trigger down, and you're just dumping bullets into this thing. And I think it was quite disappointing. Like if they had made it some like really cool, like visually impressive, but also like inventive gameplay wise final boss battle, that would have been a much better way for me to finish the game off. But like you say, it's a real return to form for the majority of it. It goes back to that classic sort of Metroidvania type thing, you know, with a small sort of self-contained location, and like in terms of horror games, like the first hour or two of that game are like genuinely like really scary. Like they do a great job with that, and then it sort of like settles itself down and becomes like a Resident Evil proper, for want of a better way of saying it, game.
Definitely, yes.
So yeah, I mean it's a weird mishmash of like styles from that like first section to the mid section of the game, where it's like out and out resi type feel, and then that sort of like end section where it kind of gets a bit rocky. But I loved it in the main, so yeah, that's why it's I anticipate it dropping down a little bit, because currently it was a choice between that and ARMS for me, whether it was going to be my number 5, and I need to play more ARMS because I haven't put much time into it. So I'm thinking maybe it might drop down my list a bit.
Cool. Yeah, it was really nice to see, and it really makes me excited to see what they do going forward with the Resident Evil series. It completely reinvigorates my faith in what they can do, because they did do a lot of different stuff there. It was just so funny because, like, even though they did so much new stuff, the stuff that was always good about those games when they were good was still great, and the stuff that was always bad about those games when they were great was still the worst part of it. They've always had ridiculous, pointless boss fights.
I know.
It's so funny that they got so much right and they didn't fix those things. But I will say I'm glad. I was a little worried at the beginning that, like, you know, I was up for whatever they can do to reinvent it because Resident Evil 6 was so bad. But I was really hoping they weren't going to go the full-on modern first-person, you know, Outlast type horror game where you can't fight back and it's just about running away and hiding. I'm glad they still kept those elements of, like, you know, involvement in your own survival with fighting.
Yeah.
I would just like a better system next time. But overall, I loved it. And there's, even as the game progresses on, there are some really cool sequences. Like the Happy Birthday sequence is awesome, and the one where you're playing as the other character is also really cool. You know, but it's just like you're absolutely right, Justin. Those big boss fights can get they're disappointing compared to how the game begins, I think.
Totally.
But yeah, Resident Evil 7.
Still a good game.
Number 5, yeah. What about you, Justin? What's your number 5?
My number 5 is what did I put down? Oh, that's Hugh stuff. Nier Automata.
Okay, let's talk about Nier Automata.
Nier Automata this game is something else. A game with multiple endings. Like, it's one of those games, and I mean, this has been said ad nauseum lately, but it shows what the video game medium can do that other things can't. Like, this doesn't play in movie, it doesn't play in book form. Maybe in book form, maybe, but the way that game lays out its choices and then peels back layers on those choices in subsequent playthroughs is astounding. The combat is why I have it where it is. In the number 5 spot. It's fine. It's nothing to jump up and down about. It's flashy, but really what you see is what you get within the first, you know, half hour,
right,
45 minutes of the game is what you're going to be dealing with for the most part throughout, with some added twists here and there.
Isn't it so funny that this game is exactly the opposite of what we thought it was going to be before it came out, which was a really engaging combat game that had a nonsense story?
Yeah, and I mean, everything about that game is good, like very good, but I feel that it's almost hard to describe it without spoiling it. But like the meta of that game, like the stepping away from it and seeing it as a whole instead of like as an individual playthrough here. Like, oh, cool, I did these 4 or 5 playthroughs and like this is the story. But then you realize with like the secret ending that you can do, like, yeah, that's really cool and stuff. But when you step back and you're like, oh, contextually, I'm doing this.
Right.
Like, for me to achieve what I want, I have to do this. And like, I'm very looking forward to end of the year like talks where I could just like flat out spoil this stuff and talk about it openly. but like I look at that game as an entire package. Even you don't know what I'm talking about.
No.
That's right. I forgot. Even you don't
I've
know.
only played. I played 7 hours of it, but I don't know.
Just like the things that you do in your first playthrough that you find out more about in your second playthrough, like you're like, oh, that's why that character made that decision, or like, why did this is why he was acting. This is why this person was acting that way, or this boss was attacking me because of this. It's like, oh, okay, and then you move on to like your third playthrough, which isn't even. It's not even like a playthrough. It's just like something completely different. And you're like, Jesus Christ, like I'm literally getting punched in the face. Like it hits you with like stuff I would say like The Last of Us. Like the type of emotion and like crippling sense of like, Jesus Christ, everything is bad.
Right.
Is like akin to that game. And I mean, the music is unbelievable. It's unlike any other video game soundtrack I've ever heard. I played it for my wife and she was like, this is different. Like, this is way different than like, I like classical orchestra stuff. So it's like, I listened to a whole bunch of different things. And she was like, this is different even for you. It's great. The characters grow on you in a way that I didn't expect from the first 6 or 7 hours I put into the game. 2B and 9S are like terrific characters. And their tale is one of unbelievable sorrow. So like, yeah, it's a game that I feel so strongly about, but like I feel strongly about it in like a different way than I have on any other game I've ever talked about on this show. It's amazing, but it is amazing as like a complete picture. So you have to play through it. You have to take the time to play through the different endings. And to do that, like I said, like I did it in like 25 hours. But it is completely worth it when you step back and look at the whole thing. It's an unbelievable package. Am I the only person on here who's beaten that game?
Yeah, I think so.
I haven't even played it yet. I will do before the end of the year.
It has to be played before the end of the year.
Yeah, it sounds really good.
Yeah. Well, basically, we have like basically July and August until anything else really big comes out. That's gonna be big and time consuming, I think. So July and August are my finish Nier and finish Horizon Zero Dawn, like months.
Yes, those are things you have to do.
Yeah, I know. Because I want to be able to fight for them not to be at the top of the list at the end of the year. No, I'm just kidding. I'm expecting to love both of them. I'm not.
No. I for the first half of this year, I've expected the Game of the Year battle to come down between like 1 or 2 games, and I'm sure we're going to talk about both of those games in the next hour.
Right? Yeah.
There is a wild card waiting out there. I have no idea what Mario Odyssey is. Like Mario Odyssey could come in and just blow everybody away.
Yeah, it's true.
There is that.
You have to do a lot to beat what is currently my number one on this list, but
it might.
We'll have to see. Okay, so that we did all our number 5s, right?
Yes.
Hugh, what's number 4, my friend?
My number 4 is What Remains of Edith Finch.
That is a little higher on my list, but we can talk about it now. It's my number 3, but we can talk about it now.
Okay.
If it was higher than that, I would have ixnayed it, but let's talk about it now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail because I think I don't want to spoil it for anybody who hasn't played it, because I think there's a lot of things that game does. It's a lot of people, I think, like I've noticed in our Discord chat, is like a lot of people have been jumping onto Firewatch again recently.
Yes, because it's very cheap, so people have bought it.
Yeah, and I think if you love that game and games of that ilk, this for me is like the pinnacle. Like absolutely fantastic. It's basically this woman walking around her childhood home, and as she's going around, she's discovering the stories, all of which are fairly tragic, of various members of her family. But you get involved physically, and you play their stories, and there's so much like creativity and originality and just downright like sheer like brilliance in some of them, that like I just, it blew me away. I just wasn't expecting it to be what it was, and like some of them are fairly short and there's not much to do. Some of them just, they go on a little, like none of them are particularly long.
I think
Looking at,
20 minutes is the longest that any of them are. Yeah.
but there's some of them that just start off with just like this simple thing. Like there's one thing where you start off and you're like, you're like somebody who's working in this factory where they're just like putting fish into a machine and it chops their head off, and it starts off like that and it just like builds into this, like it just evolves as this person who's doing this thing. Their mind wanders and you start playing what is inside their mind, and it I was just like I was playing that section, I was just like, holy shit, this is like such clever storytelling.
Yeah.
So like I said, I think in terms of that kind of like first person experience game, I think for me right now that is the best of them all. I thought it was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, what's interesting what you said about Nier, right, kind of holds true a little bit for this as well, which is that like that sequence he's talking about. Not only are you starting out in a factory chopping up these fish heads, like he works in a cannery, and he's like chopping up the fish heads, throwing them on the conveyor belt. It's a very menial task, right? It's like, and you're doing that with one hand. And then on the other hand, you start playing what's this fantasy world in his mind, but you're continuing to have to chop the fish heads off with the one analog stick, and with the other one, you're moving this character, this fantasy character, this world. So you couldn't get that same experience in anything else, right? Other than a game, because it captures what it means to be at a job where your mind is sort of dead and let it wander, and how you can do these two tasks at the same time. And it's great in that way. It's a wonderful game. Incredibly sad, like again comparing it to Nier in some ways. Really sad game, just pulverizingly sad at times, but really affecting and wonderful and weird in some very surprising ways. It's for me, I don't know if I put it above Firewatch or Gone Home, but it's in that same stratosphere with those games. Like those to me are the three best examples of these type of games, and I end up playing a lot of those type of games, and these are it's right in that grouping of like the best of those. It takes you 2.5 hours max to play through it. It's really amazing, and it's number 3 on my list, number 4 on Hughes. So Justin, what's your number 4?
I don't remember. Hang on, let's see. I just looked. We're going to have to jump around because my number 4 right now is Breath of the Wild.
Okay, yeah, you're going to have to wait on that one
a
little bit. All right?
Bit, yeah.
Just a little bit.
Yeah, we can get to it. Only because I've only put like 20 hours into it.
Right.
And so I can talk about it, and I'm sure as the year goes on, I'm sure it will go up my list, but it's just not there yet.
We'll talk about when we get to on the higher points on our list. You obviously part of that conversation. My number 4 is Night in the Woods.
That is my number 2.
Okay, so we'll wait to talk about Night in the Woods a little later.
How about I do this? How about I go with my number 3?
Well, wasn't like
Kelsey? Oh, that's right. Kelsey can come in now.
Kelsey can come in now. I'm gonna let her do her number 3.
Go ahead, Kels.
I just wanted to say that these are my 3, but I think only really one of them will probably make it to the end. But my number 3 is Mass Effect, and I know people might not agree. But I think for me, what puts Mass Effect on my list was that it was a new experience. And I think it was able to grip me enough that made me want to play. And I think that there was some problems with the mechanics, clearly. But were they to have been more developed, I think I would have had a way more fun time on it. And I think more people would have. I think a lot of it was like the backlash, and I think that made more people like weary when they stepped into it. But at the same time, I can understand that if you played the other 3, that it was sort of a letdown.
Mm-hmm.
So it's my number 3, but I think I'm more biased because I never played one before. So I think that's where I lie on it. But I think had I had that nostalgia factor, I don't know if I would have enjoyed it as much.
Yeah, that's completely understandable.
You never have to apologize for if you like a game, Kelsey.
Only I have to do that.
Only Justin has to, because Justin's ridiculous. But if you liked and enjoyed that game, that's awesome. Like that's we never want anyone to not enjoy a game, so don't ever feel like you have to apologize for liking something. If you brought it to the table for the game of the year, then we'd have another discussion. But
Yeah, like I understand that it won't be everyone's game of the year, and I know and I see the problems. I think that it just the enjoyment factor alone on the game for myself is what would put it high for me.
all right, I think that's great. All right, so let's go to our number threes, I guess here. So Hugh, what's your number three as well?
I think we may have a wait. My three is Horizon.
That's my number one.
Okay, you don't have to say what it was, but you wait. All right, so we'll wait on that one.
That's fine. I have a game that we could talk about that like, because I know from here on out our games are interchangeable.
Yeah, it's true. We're in a point.
I
now.
am the only person that has a game on here that is not interchangeable with anybody else.
Okay, what's your number three?
Is ARMS.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Number three.
I have over 15 hours in ARMS.
Wow.
I can't tell you why. I can't think of like. Actually, I can.
It's a great game.
I'm bad at fighting games.
Mhm.
I am legitimately bad. I have amazing anxiety in fighting games. I feel the pressure more than I do in any other game I've ever tried to play. MOBAs, shooters, sports games, you name it, nothing gets to me like fighting games. And the thing is, I have a decent memory, except when it comes to fighting game controls. I can't remember movesets for my life.
Same.
I'm playing Injustice 2 now, which Kelsey I bet might be on her list. And I look at the start menu every 15 seconds because I can't remember any of the buttons. I just can't. I don't know why. All of them are pretty much the same.
Yeah.
Like they're like, forward back triangle.
Mhm.
Might be something for half of those people.
Yeah.
But I, for some reason, just can't remember, and I just get anxiety, and I get really bent when I get destroyed online in fighting games. So I've stayed away from them for the most part. Actually, I always stay away from them.
Right.
I only play fighting games for their story campaigns, like
Mhm.
Injustice. There is something about ARMS which is just so unbelievably inviting and awesome that I have spent, out of that 15 hours, 12 of it online fighting other people. And I got on there and I got my ass worked a bunch. But I just kept going at it and just kept saying to myself, it's not ranked. Just go in there and have fun. Like, it doesn't matter. No one can see what your win-loss record is. No one is that you can't be taunted or, easily made fun of. Like, just go in there and try and get better. And so I started experimenting with different characters, and I settled on Bite and Bark as my go-to main. And he is not as good. He's like middle of the tier. He's not great, but he has a freaking robot dog with sunglasses. So I said, I have to find a way to get good at this guy.
Yeah.
So I went on to their single player campaign, and I started on the easiest setting, and I played through 1 through 5. And so I eventually unlocked ranked battles by beating stage 4 or whatever, or difficulty 4 out of 7. And then I went back in and started incorporating different arms on my guy. And then I started having some success. And there were times where I won like 5 or 6 matches in a row and then lost 6 in a row.
Right.
And then the other day I played and I won, 11 matches in a row. And every time I started a match after that, I started around like, I'll say win 8. I started with 3/4 health. And then I started matches with half of a health bar because I had a handicap.
That's crazy.
And I was winning matches like that, and it felt unbelievably good. And like, yeah, that game doesn't have the depth of a Street Fighter or a Tekken or even an Injustice.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a level of complexity to the way that game is laid out. Like, you really do have to be paying attention to what the other person is doing, what type of arms that they're using. Like, you may start a match and be like, crap, they have arms that will block every one of my throws. I have to figure out a way past this. And it's a lot of baiting. Like, I'm going to go in and make sure this guy uses his super at the worst possible time because I'm going to open myself up to it and pretend I'm going to throw a punch and not.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and you will start noticing patterns and things like that you'll have to like eventually just be like, I'm going to keep doing the same thing over and over so he thinks he has me, and then change it up. Because that's been done to me over and over again.
Right.
And yeah, I started playing ranked matches. and I have now I'm now rank 3, and I forget how high it goes up. I'm not sure, and I know that when if I keep playing and eventually get up there, it's all going to be the same character. It's all going to be the fast characters that can just spam throws. So like I might not continue with that because like I don't need that in my life, but I'm having a ton of fun just doing the party mode, and for some reason, which I can guess, Jorah has latched onto this game in the biggest way, and so he loves just picking up the controllers and using the motion controls and punching. He's learned all the characters' names like unbelievably fast. He's mad the headlock is not an actual character in the game. So yeah, like there's something about it. The character designs, the charm of the different arms. So far I've accumulated like I think 800 of those points, and so I have unlocked arms for half the arms for certain characters, and I'm working on all the rest. Like there's something about it that I just love, and it's like I was hoping to like it. I didn't know I would fall in love with it.
Well, it seems like it's doing for you in fighting games what Splatoon did for a lot of people for shooters.
Yeah.
You know, games that they normally couldn't get into, they got into. I mean, it's that Nintendo magic, right? What they're able to do with game types, and they're proving they can do with different game types than they've done before.
Yeah.
You know, it's like if, in their example, it's like if Blizzard made a fighting game.
Which I'm sure eventually they're going to.
Which they will, yeah. But, you know, it's that type of idea, right? It's like there's something about what they do. And Nintendo's a lot easier to, like, grasp and understand right there. The art style is very welcoming. You know, it's a game that is easy to enter, you know, but difficult to master. So even if you're just flailing around, you can at least have a good time.
Yeah, and I for the first time, I played with somebody I knew. Mm-hmm. Hugh and I got to play 2 matches against each other the other day, and which was incredibly easy to set up for Nintendo.
Right, yeah.
Pretty easy to set up.
Yeah.
And then they were spectating. Like, I'd be really interested to see, like, there's 2 people are fighting, other people are spectating the match. Like, I think that would be really cool to get a couple people together and do that. Mm-hmm. And of course, no voice chat. Right, yeah. But I mean, we could have just jumped on Discord. We just didn't have the time. But yeah, I mean, man, there's something about ARMS that completely has me in, and it's a lot of it has to do with the way that game looks. Like, just the design of the characters are phenomenal.
For sure.
And it's fun.
Awesome.
Yeah, I think it's just got that really cool sort of like, it's a simple game, but it's got a lot of depth to it. But how much depth it has is completely up to you. So it can be as simple or as deep as you want it to be, and I think that's really appealing. And I'm not a fighting game fan either. I'm the same as Justin. Like, I have this thing where I either forget the moves or halfway through and my fingers just get tied in knots, and I'm just like, and just start mashing at the controller. But you know, the controls in this are very simple. But like Justin says, you've got is that thing about thinking about how you're moving in a fight and stuff like that, and sort of trying to catch people. Like I do this thing where I sort of like jump one way and then you can sort of dash. So I jump one way and dash the other and just try and move them unpredictably and stuff like that. So it's just really cool. Like you could easily, like, you know, give it to Joe to play and he can have just tons of fun throwing punches and going, you know, nuts with it. Or, you know, you can, as a more experienced gamer, then you can like mix the arms around and get, you know, get more into it. So I'm having tons of fun with it, and I do expect it to be it'll be in my top 10. I need to play more of it because it's such a good fun game.
And I mean, would it be better if it had like an Injustice level story mode or something similar to that? You know, where there's like cutscenes and stuff. Yeah, sure, it would be totally fine. But my counter to that would be like Overwatch has no story, no anything, and people love the hell out of it.
Yeah.
They're going to be adding free stuff. I'm interested to see. They've already have their first character coming in July, Max Brass, who you end up fighting at the end of the game as the final boss. So you can kind of see what he's like before he's even out. But like, I'm interested to see what other type of modes they put in this thing. Like, are they going to flesh out the story mode anymore? Any more than they already have, or are they just going to add in different type of party modes? Like, I'm super stoked to see where this game goes. And man, the second they announce any amiibos for that thing, I am all over it.
Awesome. Kelsey, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is ukulele.
Oh, okay.
Cool. Yeah, I picked it because I think I really enjoyed it more than other like 2D platformer kind of things I played because they're sort of similar, but it threw in the like not option game mechanic, I guess, of having a more 3D world, and it's semi open world, I guess. And you know how I'm afraid of those. So uh, I really liked it. It was like a cute story, and I think the collecting of books and playing as Laylee and Yuka was fun. There were definitely performance issues, and I think if you had played the game on the PC, it was a lot better than what I did on the PS4, specifically with the fighting mechanics in the game. But otherwise, no, I really, really liked it. I thought it was super fun, and I wanted to get back into it and finish it. I just haven't had the time, but I would definitely go back in and play it. Um, I really enjoyed it. I'm excited to try the Crash Bandicoot game and see like which one I like more. I'm excited.
Crash
Did you
is
ever
fun.
did you ever play the Crash games back in the day, Kelsey? When you were like 3 months old or whatever, how old you were when those games came out?
I played one. I don't remember which one it was, but one of my friends had it on his PS2. Is that possible?
It's yes, there are
Yes.
there are
Okay.
PS2 Crash games. Yes.
Yeah, and so I played one on the PS2, and I liked it. I love these types of games.
Mhm.
So I think if it's a good enough story and the art is cute, I think it's like a winner in my book. So that's what happened there. But I definitely the performance issues. I think they did an update actually recently, so I should try it out now with the update.
Cool. Very cool. Justin, do you have something to say? You look like you were poised to say something.
Oh, I was thinking just it's humorous to me that Kelsey's playing games that or games similar to like she wanted to play Crash, but Ukulele is like a direct descendant of Banjo Kazooie.
Yeah.
But those types of games weren't not simple, but like they weren't user friendly
No.
back in the day.
No,
And so it's just
for
funny
sure
that
not.
Kelsey is like, I like all these games, and she's always complaining about games being hard. It's like, man, back in our day,
Yeah.
Yeah, and then
Back in the early 3D platformer days were not fun.
the remaster of the Crash Bandicoot game so far, the what they've done to that in terms of like judging the jumping and stuff like that is quite a bit more difficult than it was originally.
Yeah,
It
that's
sucked
what I
ba-
heard.
It sucked back then.
That's what I heard, that they were actually
Yeah.
harder now than
Yeah,
they
'cause
were back
apparently
then.
I think it was Digital Foundry. They did this like sort of deep dive as they do,
Mhm.
and they were saying like the hitboxes, for want of a better term, when you land, are oval. So when you land on a ledge, it's not completely flat, so you can slide backwards. So unless you judge a jump, so you go over that imaginary curve, you're gonna go up down the hole, and it's
wow.
No,
incredibly frustrating.
I remember that. I remember that on Crash because when you're running towards the screen, jumping over things, trying to land on things that you guess are there,
Yeah.
you would hit them and be like, "Cool, why am I in a pit?"
Yeah. So cool. So let's talk about Night in the Woods now. That's my number 3. Your number 2,
Yeah.
right? That game. I mean, if you listen to the podcast around that time, there's a funny arc of like Justin being like, "I'll play that game sometime before the end of the year or whenever
Yeah.
everyone else plays it," and then everyone's telling me I have to play it. That's when I'll play it. And then I get a text from Justin being like, "I started Night in the Woods," and then he finished it a week before I finished it.
I finished that game in like 3 days.
Yeah. It's a pretty special game.
Yeah.
Turned out to be something I didn't know what I was expecting going in. I heard it was going to be very good. I didn't know what to expect going in. The fact that the main thing that stands out to me is the use of the characters and the dialogue, even though they're anthropomorphized animals, is some of the most realistic and natural sounding and feeling dialogue and characters that I felt in a game, I think, ever, which was the thing that stood out to me the most.
Yep.
With that thing.
I would say even more than ARMS, like the surprise of the year for me. At least that with ARMS, I was hoping to like it. Night in the Woods, when you showed it, when you said like, "Oh, I'm gonna play this game," I mean, it was at a time too. I think it was like early January or early February, where it was just like there was like really nothing out at the time, and I was like, I'm just looking for something. Oh, it was before Horizon came out. I was looking for something to just like, let me just blow through this real quick, and like a half hour after I started, I was like, man, this is something else. I think the game was like 10 or 11 hours long, but just the way that they talk to each other and the way that your May is your main character is just such an idiot. But she's supposed to be. She's 21. She's 22. She doesn't really understand the way the world works. And like, and I mentioned this on the podcasts around that time, but like she left. She went to college, dropped out of college, came back, and the people that stayed in that town, they all like evolved past her, like, because like, hey, we didn't go to college, we left high school and worked, and like years later, like I've been working for years now, like this is what life is like, and like life doesn't always have the simple answer. And that was like that's the theme of that game is like life doesn't have a simple answer. There is no easy button to push, and sometimes the choices that you are given, none of them are good.
Yeah.
I remember this one decision I made in the game. It was like, I don't want to choose either of these, but you had to. And that's the way that life is sometimes. Like, there is sometimes no right answer. It's just which one is less wrong.
Yeah. You get into this sort of discussion with your best friend about, like, her mother dying and the way her father is, like, drinking a lot and stuff. And you bring it up as the main character in a really terrible way. Like she has no social skills when it comes to talking to people. And the options they give you to respond to her after she kind of gets upset, none of them are, you look at them as like a 34-year-old person who has gone through life. You look at those three answers and go like, none of these things are going to work out well for you if you say any of these things.
And you have to say them.
You just say one of them, and it's kind of the idea where like, yeah, like, yes, me as Bobby would not say that now, but a 19-year-old dealing with these topics wouldn't know the right thing to say and would end up saying something stupid, especially someone who's going through the things that May is going through. And it was great to see them not skirt around those things and also deal with things like anxiety in a way that I'd never seen before or I'd ever seen like talked about in that way before. And even though she was describing an experience that I had never had, it kind of crystallized some of my own like anxiety in a way that I didn't expect, which was really really satisfying in a lot of ways. And it also deals with like mortality and ideas of mortality and ideas of like, there are people who are looking out for you and people who aren't looking out for you and all that kind of stuff, which was really deep and more than I expected there to be in that game.
Yeah, no, like home issues at home, and
yes,
with your parents and disappointment. Game has unbelievably good music too.
Oh yeah, it's amazing music.
Kelsey and Hugh. I mean, these are games. This one's going to be talked about in December.
It's on my
it has
list
to be on
of games I
it
need
has
to
to be on
play.
the list.
Yeah. I'm writing a list.
It's definitely a Kelsey game too, for sure. It's definitely a game that you will love.
I mean, a 22-year-old who doesn't know what she's doing in her life. It's me. It's me.
I'm 35 and I don't know, so don't worry.
Yeah, it's universal.
Yeah.
If we can create a May tweets for the podcast, it would fit almost hand in hand with Kelsey.
Yeah, definitely. There's some social media use that is reminiscent. But yeah, there's a scene early on where she goes to a party, right? Like this like kegger party out in the woods, and her ex-boyfriend is there. And she slowly gets like more and more drunk as the night goes on. And she starts out being like, I don't care that he's here, whatever, it's fine. And then it ends with like her like just screaming at him for no reason, and he's just like, hey, how you doing, man? And she's like, I don't want. Shut up! The hell is wrong with you? And it's just it feels very real because I've been to parties where people have done that, and I've also been that person at a party who's done that. So it feels just so real, and I think that. And I think they talked about this on the Waypoint podcast, but the fact that none of it's voice acted, I think that it's all told in like text, I think actually helps the feeling of immersion, because I think if there were actors speaking those lines, they wouldn't feel quite as natural.
Yeah.
But it is natural to the way people speak in text in modern day. So whether it be online or whatever, so I think that works really, really well.
And I'll say that I never replay these types of games. Mm-hmm. I've never replayed Oxenfree or Overwatch.
Firewatch?
Firewatch. All those watches. But I didn't get to see half of the story because
Yeah.
of the choices that I made, and like I really want to go back and see what it's like to hang out with Greg.
Yeah.
So I think before the end of this year, Bobby and I might sit down together and play the full playthrough of that campaign and see those other choices that I didn't make.
Oh, Justin, so many voices to do in that video.
Actually, never mind.
Because there's no dialogue.
And maybe
and
some
it has
singing.
to be read.
Never mind.
We have to switch off. You have to do some voices. I have to do some voices.
No, take us out of the immersion, remember?
No.
No, though. We need full immersion.
Yeah, but you can't do a stream where people are just reading dialogue lines.
Totally can.
No, you can't.
We can talk about what's happening. We need to voice them. God. Moving on.
Did we do your number 2, Hugh? We didn't, right?
No.
What's your number 2, sir?
My number 2 is a little game called PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds.
What do you know? That's my number 2 as well.
I anticipated this. I anticipate our number 1s will be the same also.
Yes, very true.
I mean, I'm not going to speak too much about it. I can't really say much about it that we haven't said for the past many weeks.
I'm going to say, Hugh, we've talked so little about it on the podcast in the last 2 months.
I know.
Does it count? It's not out yet. I'm not being a dick. I'm asking.
No,
if
but
this counts.
I'm saying like we make those rules for ourselves. Like we don't have to go by like giant bomb rules.
I'm just asking.
Yes, it counts.
Because early access games have never been allowed in our list before.
Well, we weren't really playing many PC games at that point, so I think it's like.
And
it's going to be
also
out.
It will
too,
be out by the end of the year.
Yes, there'll be 1.0 by the end of the year. But
fine by me.
Go ahead, Hugh.
But yeah, talk about like a game the type of which I've never played before. Obviously, like battle royale games are much more of a PC thing than a console thing.
Yes.
And just sort of watching it on streams and thinking this game looks nuts. And then building a PC on the back of wanting to play the fucking thing.
Yeah.
Like it's just such a like. I think it's another game like Arms. It's kind of like at its core. It's very simple. It's just like find the best stuff you can, survive, and make sure you don't go outside this area. But there's just so much going on. You've got to be aware of your surroundings all times. Make sure you're in the play area. Tailor your loadout as best you can to like how you play. You gotta, if you're playing as a duo, communication is absolutely key. And it's just really fucking exciting to play. Like especially if you get sort of into the top 20, it's like sweaty palms time. And it's just so much fun. Like it's just one of those games where you can just jump into a round. If you get killed earlier on, you're like, screw it, I'll just jump in, and it's just you can just easily just keep going in for one more, and it's just incredibly like it's enthralling and it's addictive, and I've just like I don't think I've ever sort of like played a game where like I've never had like full on like lengthy text conversations like I've had with you, Bobby, about like next time let's try and do this, next time let's try and do that. Like I think we should maybe try looting this area because I've seen on streams that there's better loot there than there is over here. And it's just like incredibly immersive. It's just like that sort of like want to get to the point where you can get yourself in a position to win a game and get better at it is just like it's tangible more or less, and like it's brilliant. I love that game. It's a revelation. I think it's like the sort of like out of nowhere like smash hit of the year, I think, really.
Yeah. I've never wanted to get better at a game more than I want to get better at Battlegrounds. I've never cared much about being better at something. Like I'll get better as much as the fact that I'll play it a lot, and then however good I get playing it, that's how good I get. but thinking about strategy, thinking about tactics, I've never dived into that before in a game really ever. And my love for the game really started like watching people play it. Like I watched Giant Bomb play it, I watched a little of like Polygon play it, a little Waypoint play it, and then when that started happening, I started like from watching it, it made me want to play it, and then I started getting into playing it, and watching them play and the mistakes that other people make or the things they do right definitely informs what I do when I play the next time. So this the ideas of like using natural cover, staying with the sun to your back when people, keeping the sun behind you so that when people look up towards you, they have a harder time seeing you. Stuff like that. The strategy of okay, like a couple of because you look, you can start the game your first time, dive in, try to dive as far away from people as possible, hide in a house, and you can make it to the top 30, top 40, top 30, maybe even top 20 doing that if you get lucky with the circle, right? If you just like hide in a bathroom for a little while, you can get there. But if you do that, you'll never get when you get down to the top 10 where there's no place to hide, you'll never win, right? You'll never win. You have to get better at the game in order to win. And so unless you're playing with people who are great at the game, you just kind of like stay in the background and let them do their thing. You have to know you have to practice shooting, you have to practice strategy where to hide, and that means like some matches are just washes. Some of you're like, I'm going to dive into the military base because that's where everybody's diving, and I'm just going to get into a gunfight because I have to get in a gunfight to be better at shooting guns. Because I'm never going to be good at these situations where somebody runs up on me if I don't get into those situations over and over again. It's not like playing Battlefield or Overwatch or anything like that. You don't get to practice like on the job. When you're trying to win a match, you have to just do it, and that's been a revelation to me as well. It's the game it's very much in like that Hitman world for me right now, where I enjoy watching it as much as I enjoy playing it. And it's gotten to the point too where I prefer playing it like with you, Hugh, like in a duo or in a squad. I'll play by myself, but like it's not as fun to me because like the act of dying isn't as fun to me when you're not playing with other people. Like, I don't mind dying when I'm playing with you because then I get to watch you and like it's it's entertaining in its own right. But in that game, like when you're playing solo, if you die quickly, it's just like you get a couple of matches in a row where like you don't find a weapon and you get shot in have the shotgun a couple of times or by a rifle when you're trying to run from a house. It can get a little frustrating, But when you're playing with somebody else, that's a little mitigated a little bit. I will say, I'll eat total crow. There was like 3 months ago, Hugh was like, "Oh, I'm interested in this Battlegrounds game. I saw people stream it." And I was like, "Hugh, I cannot deal with this like multiplayer game of month like thing. Like I just can't deal with it. Like whoever the game is there with me playing for 6 months, that's the one I'll hop on." And here I am. I put 40 hours into this game. So it's like, it's a total revelation to me. It's never a game that I thought I would be into playing, and it's just like, it's all I want to play. So, and that's my number 2. So, we have your number 2 is Night in the Woods, right?
Yes.
My number 2 is Battlegrounds. Kelsey's number 2 is Ukulele. So back to you, Kelsey. What's your number 1?
It's Injustice.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Awesome.
I probably love that game the most out of everything I played all year. I think about it a lot sometimes.
That'll be why it's number 1.
I don't know. I think it really surprised me. I wasn't expecting the story to be as good, which it was. I wasn't expecting the graphics to be as good as they were. I was really, 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 really impressed. And I wasn't expecting just the game in general to be as fun as it was. Like I said, I really don't play a lot of fighting games or watch a lot of fighting games. So I was iffy about it, but it was a lot of fun. And then the more you're playing it, the better you get at specific characters, and you can kind of pick the ones you like. But I appreciate that the game, like within the story mode, you touched upon a bunch of different characters. I just thought that the game overall was really fun, and I thought it was an improvement also from the first Injustice. So I think I really appreciate this game, and I'm really happy that I got to play it, that I took the time to play a game that I was afraid and uncomfortable with playing at first. So that's why it's my number one.
That's awesome. I mean, that's. I think we can all take a lesson from what we were just saying about Battlegrounds. You saying about Injustice. Sometimes playing games that you don't think you're going to like ends up being some of the more satisfying experiences you have playing games.
Totally.
And you know, I think we're all guilty of it sometimes, sort of cutting ourselves off at times and being like, "This game isn't for me. I'm not going to play it." And I try my best not to do that. I do it sometimes, you know. But playing Battlegrounds has been one of those experiences for me where I go like, maybe I should just not ever say that again, because if you told me what this game was and just told me the facts of it, like I wouldn't play it. You know,
I thought you would hate it.
Yeah, I know you thought. I remember I texted you. I was like, I bought Battlegrounds. You're like, great, you're gonna love it. And same thing with the fighting games, Kelsey. It's like you took a chance on a game that you wouldn't normally play, and you ended up loving it, which is an awesome feeling.
Yeah, I'm really happy because I figured I would like it just because it's DC. So I was like, okay, at most I'll enjoy the story mode. But I really liked learning the mechanics of the game, and I thought like I don't know. I think I'm a very like nostalgic person, and I think everything's like cute. And so I was like excited to play like different characters and just seeing like what moves they would give them. I don't know. I was just happy when I was playing them, and like whenever I would do their move, and it was like something I was like, oh yeah, that's perfect. Like I was just like they were my friends. I was like, good job, that's cute. You just
Well, I mean,
had
that's
fun.
awesome. That's awesome.
I want to say one thing about Injustice.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, I just started playing it. I'm halfway through the story mode. I'm at a part in the story right now where something just happened, and I don't know if I actually should believe it or not. So, I mean, I think the story mode is great. I've talked about how much I enjoy the Injustice comics. One thing that stood out to me about Injustice 2 was it's one of like those rare games where you could see where all the money went.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Like
Yeah.
that thing oozes quality even in the menus.
Yeah.
Like you get up to the menu and it's just like the menus are like there's some sort of like stylistic approach to them that is like pleasing to look at. And you're like, all right, well, let me go into just like customized character, and like everything just loads in perfectly. Like you have your characters, and then you're seeing like, okay, cool. Like I could add like I can make my Batman purple. Why? I don't know why, but like I decided in this world because it's such an offshoot world, I'm gonna just change everybody's costumes. Like there's this costume I am eyeing for Barry because like he's reformed, so like it makes sense to me that he might be like, I want a costume change. Like I want to be a different color, and like I'm gonna go do that. I think the armor stuff is like a really neat idea. I haven't really gotten a chance to equip it yet. I went into the multiverse, and like its explanation for the multiverse is perfect, like just like full on comic book perfect. Kelsey mentions the way the game looks graphically, like stunning
Exactly.
facial animations.
Yeah.
And their transition from cutscene into hey, we're gonna throw down is also like very very good and seamless. Like it's not just like
Yes.
cut to a loading screen and now you're fighting. It's like we were just standing here talking and now we're throwing down. And it's like you look at like games like movies, like a big budget movie. You're like, this all looks great. You could see why it cost $300 million to make or whatever. And like whatever Injustice's budget was, it's like all well spent. And there's not a lot of games that you could say that about.
True. Very, very true.
Yeah. It is
So,
isn't it?
no,
Like,
go ahead.
just think from like you say, everything, menus, the gameplay, it's just an like beautifully put together package. And I think I mentioned about when I first started playing it that, like you said, just in those transitions between the cutscenes, and it's just like camera pulls back, you're fighting, and it's just like it's seamless. It's so well done.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Justin, why don't you go to your number one now?
It's Horizon.
We know you spoiled it earlier.
Sorry. I'm sure people could figure out by process of elimination. Horizon Zero Dawn is a fantastic video game. I mean, there's a lot that's been said about it on this show. You know, it is to me the open world game, the style of open world game we've been playing for years, perfected to a T. Its combat refines, visuals gorgeous, maybe the most jaw-dropping visuals on any console, even rivaling like PC stuff. especially on 4K TVs. It's ridiculous. Its story is where most of these games fall apart. Story is top notch. It's top notch sci-fi story. Its villain is one of the more dastardly villains I've ever seen in a video game, and he doesn't really make himself apparent until the end. It's not like, and it, by villain, I don't mean the big bad that you're fighting or you think that you're fighting through most of the game. There is a side villain in there that is just like unbelievably bad. There's an entire mission where you're just picking up data logs, and I don't really care about those things, but Horizon crafts a world that is so interesting. You want to know what happened. How did we get here? And you don't get those answers until you're way far in the game, but the game doesn't ever it doesn't just leave you wondering. It's giving you like drips and drabs and like keeping you on a pace of like, I just want to keep going and finding out more and more. And it's like, when you find out enough, it's like, well, I need to find out all of this. I need to listen to all these data logs and read all these text logs to see like what went wrong. How did we end up here? And just running around in that world, it's like, yeah, it's like you could say it's a Far Cry game, but it is better than any Far Cry game. It's better than all the Far Cry games I've ever played combined. They just taken every bit. Like, to me, they did the Nintendo thing of like, or the Blizzard thing. We're going to take what everybody else has done. We're going to refine it, polish it, and give it back to you to where it feels like you're seeing this for the first time. And yeah, if you step away, you're like, well, I've seen this game do this and this game do this, and you still can't do this. But in the end of the day, none of that stuff mattered to me. The package that was given to me, the 40 hours I put into that game, I wouldn't change any of it. I thought it was spectacular. And to me, this was going to be the battle at the end of the year. Was going to be like Horizon's open world versus Zelda's. And they're two completely different games, aside from the open world nature of them.
Yes.
Their mechanics are different. Their gameplay structures are different.
Their aims are different. Yeah, for sure. Yes.
But man, like Horizon is one of those games where it's like, if you think that I've been there, done that, play Horizon. Like, people feel like, oh, well, I played like the first 2 hours and it really didn't go anywhere. It's like, well, I don't understand that, because I think the first 2 hours set up like a ton of world building. But if you feel that way, like, just get out there. Go find yourself a robot T-Rex. Come back and talk to me.
Just good life advice in general.
Yeah, you find your robot T-Rex, come back and tell me how everything's normal. I've seen that before. Right. You haven't. It's really good. And they had some really fun weapons in there that these other games I find like in your standard Ubisoft open world game, like they're missing that type of like weapon variety.
Tripcasters,
it's good. Fun. Tripcasters are amazing. I mean, there's really nothing like this giant T-Rex barreling down on you, and you're like, nope, you're not going anywhere. I'm going to just tie you down to the ground. I'm going to shoot off your giant cannon and then shoot you with it. It's the best. And like their lead character, Aloy, is fantastic. For me, definitely character of the year. Like I mentioned before, a tremendous story. So I'll save my battles for towards the end of the year. But yeah, like Horizon Zero Dawn, I think in pretty much any other year, I would be a runaway contender for Game of the Year. And I think we could probably say that about with us over a couple of games.
Yes.
There is one giant game in the way, and I feel like there is one giant other game coming that could, like, for me, shake up everything.
Right. Both from the same
company.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is the year I fell in love with Nintendo.
Again.
So, no, like, I mean, I've never really been the Nintendo guy on this show.
For me, it's again. Yeah.
So let's talk about it.
You want to talk about Zelda?
Let's talk about Zelda.
Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild is... Look, this is one of those things where it's like a cliche to say it, I think, but it does feel like to me that these last couple of years we've been in some like crazy great age of gaming where like every year there's been a game that's come out that has been like, for me, has been like, this could be in my top 10 of ever,
Last year it was The Witness for you.
Last year was The Witness. Year before that was Metal Gear Solid 5. Like, it's like these games, and even though Metal Gear Solid 5, The Witness, and Zelda couldn't be more different from one another, right? And what they do, they all did the same thing to me, which was that I would play them, I would start playing them, and not realize that I'd all of a sudden put 4, 5, 6 hours straight into whatever I was doing in those games. The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild just it's this giant open world where you're given little to no direction except for a few quest markers for the main goals that you have to achieve. But the order in which you achieve them and the way in which you achieve them, more importantly, it's almost limitless how you can go about the things you do. I am not the type of gamer who ends up in these most of the time in these ridiculous situations, doing these ridiculous contraptions that people do. You saw, I mean, when that game, the first month or so the game was out, you saw all of these GIFs and videos pop up of people doing nuts stuff, right? Where they use the stasis power to knock a tree 1,000 times, then jump on the tree and use it to go across the entire map or whatever. I'm not the kind of gamer who does that kind of thing, but the fact that it could be done is amazing to me.
It's amazing.
It's amazing. And it's such an un-Nintendo thing to do, which I think is the greatest thing about it, is that they went, you know what? We're not going to put a bunch of crazy restrictions and rules on you. We're not going to structure this down to the very last moment and minute. Here you go. You're out. You have to do a couple of things to get used to what this initial the mechanics of the world. After that, just do whatever you want. You want to go try to fight the hardest enemy in the game when all you have is a wooden sword and you're naked? Go right ahead. That's
how I like to tackle the world.
You want to spend 75 hours getting shrines and fighting enemies before you ever do one of the dungeons? Go ahead, do that too.
I think that's the path I'm on.
I will say, doing the dungeons does give you some cool powers that you can use throughout the game.
Yeah, I gotta go do those,
which makes traversal easier. But the game is full of just these little player stories that pop up everywhere. Whether it's you're on your way to a shrine, or you're going to a certain village, or you after 70 hours you find this person who unlocks a whole new type vendor and currency type in the game. A whole new equipment type unlocks. There's all of this stuff. The shrines are amazing. They're these little mini dungeons all to themselves, and they sometimes they have these brilliant puzzles to them. They're almost like little portal rooms, portal test chambers for these mechanics. And there's the way you can do it, but there's ways you can completely subvert what they want you, what the set goal is, or the set path is to do them. It has all of those things to me, and the fact that it launched with a brand new system. It made me pour hours and hours and hours into that system. I played it handheld, I played it on the TV, and both were great for me. It's one of those games where all the things I'm saying are the parts that make it great, but the sum of it to me is even bigger than those parts, right? I was just consistently blown away by what it was doing, and just in love with what I was doing, whether it was going from one end of the world to the other or doing a dungeon. So it just had that special something to me that every once in a while open world games get me like this. That doesn't happen all the time, right? I feel like the last time I put this much time into open world game, it was a game like Skyrim, and I think this does share things in common with those type of games. Yeah. Obviously, it takes the idea of just walk, and you're going to be going someplace, and then you're going to get distracted by 7 other things to do. But it feels even looser than those games in a lot of ways, and the world doesn't feel sometimes as random as Skyrim could feel, because in Skyrim you go into those dungeons, and they're basically always the same type of thing, and you always know, okay, if I'm an ice guy, I'm gonna fight a fire guy, and that's not the way it is, right, in Zelda. But it takes a lot from modern games. It takes a lot from games that took a lot from Zelda, and it implements them in a purely Nintendo way that I think elevates what has been done before. Hugh, I know it's also your number one, right?
Yeah. I mean, everything you said. I mean, it's just the license that they give you for creativity in that game is just absolutely astounding. Like you said, Bobby, the amount of videos that were coming out of people just doing absolutely insane things, and you just watch them and you're just I would never have thought of doing this. And it's just the sense of adventure, discovery, and freedom that you're given from the off. There's very little, you've maybe got about half an hour before you just basically here you go, off off you go type thing. And it's just brilliant, the design, like the effort that went into the shrines, is just absolutely fantastic. Like some of them are incredibly tricky, some are like ridiculously simple, some aren't about puzzles, they're about like how good you are at like the fighting in the game. And it's a tough game as well. It's not like it's just a sort of like you can run around and do what you want when you think you want to do it. Like if you go into an area of the map where you're not strong enough to be, you will get the shit kicked out of you. And even when you get quite strong, there's still enemies on that map that will just hammer the hell out of you, like with one hit. It's just great. Like the dungeons are awesome. The boss battles at the end of them, for the most part, are really cool. And the final boss battle is just like visually just an absolute spectacle. Taking out Resident Evil 7. Like it's fun to play and it looks awesome at the same time. But I think it was just it felt really refreshing to me just to have like a game where it was just like, it's one thing to be given freedom in the world when you're playing a video game, but it's another to be given the freedom, but also you never really feel like you don't have a sense of direction, because you're walking around and you're always discovering things. You're picking up side missions, or just something that something random happens, or one of those crazy like dragons flies over you and you're just like,
oh,
whoa,
yeah.
Look at that. Or you'll be running around and a shooting star will fall out of the sky and you just be like, what? Like the first time I saw one, I was just like, what the hell was that? And just ran over to it. And it's just like I would have loved to have been a fly on the wall when they were developing that game, because it just like the amount of creativity and just genius behind that game is absolutely amazing. Like going back on Horizon's my number 3 of the year. I'm about just over halfway through that game and I am loving it, to the point where I do think it could be a contender to displace Breath of the Wild. I'm gonna have to wait and see on that one, but right now, like, Breath of the Wild is just like, I think it's an absolute, like, it's a milestone, I think, in modern gaming. It's an amazing achievement.
It could shoot up my list. I mean, I've loved every second I've put into it. I mean, let me take that back for a second. Those stupid puzzles with the motion controls and the balls,
they're terrible.
Those are terrible.
Yeah.
And
luckily there's like 2 of them.
Good. But I mean, I spent a while on that one. Doing it when the Joy-Cons were attached to the handheld.
Yeah.
And I was like, I think I texted you and was like, whatever geniuses designed this should be taken out.
Is that the one where you gotta like flip the ball?
Yes, I ended up. Yeah,
I ended up.
It was easier with the Joy-Cons like separated from the hand from the dock or whatever.
Yeah.
It's good. Like the stuff that it lets you do, like, and the little stuff. Like, I'm carrying an open flame and I walked next to a tree with apples and the apples burnt.
Yeah.
Like, that's great.
Yeah.
Like, it just the fact that it lets you do whatever you want, and it is like that. It is like Skyrim.
Yeah.
Like, I just started walking. I've done the main quest, and it's like, go out, and it's like, I'm not doing any of these questions. Just walking. I'm walking in a line until I get my ass kicked.
Right.
And then I'm walking in another line.
Yeah.
I'm debating buying the DLC just so I can get the Hero's Path thing.
Oh yeah.
Because a lot of my time is spent climbing up mountains that I just can't get up all the way because I run out of stamina.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, I found the labyrinth. I was like, what the hell is this? And so I jumped in and was just running over the tops of it. I'm like, oh cool, there's a shrine in here.
Yeah.
I spent an absurd amount of time looking for that wolf amiibo, and then gave up on it. And I went to GameStop because they're having this ridiculous trade-in program right now, and traded in a bunch of stuff. And was walking out, and I paid off 2 games in full Star Wars and Wolfenstein, and I was like, I had like $15 left over, and I walked out and I saw it. I went to the counter and I was like, I haven't been playing because I've been waiting for one of these. So yeah, like I thought I was gonna have all year. Like in the back of my mind, I was like, I'm gonna have all year to beat Zelda before Game of the Year comes out, so I could say everything I want to say about it. But then it's looking forward, like moving forward, I'm like, I'm not gonna have any time to play this because there's other stuff coming out on the Switch that I'm like really excited for.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to in coming weeks when we do the looking forward show. It's tremendous. It's a tremendous video game.
And it's your first Zelda game, right?
Yes.
Yeah, which is cool.
I've never really had interest in Zelda before because it's like I knew what the formula was. And if I didn't have a Nintendo, and whenever I did have a Nintendo, it was like, I don't want to play Twilight Princess when I could be playing on my 360 right now. I just can't. I couldn't handle the way Twilight Princess looked. I was a snob.
Yeah.
Twilight Princess looks real rough on the Wii.
Well, now it looks real rough. It didn't look real rough then.
Yeah, but like this is going back like when Twilight Princess was like 5 or 6 years old.
Well, yes.
It was rough to go back to, and so like the same thing with like Ocarina and stuff. It was like never like I didn't have an N64, so why would I go back and play it? Like they look like cubes.
Yeah.
And like sure, I could play like A Link to the Past or Zelda 1 or 2, but like I never really was into Nintendo enough.
Yeah.
And like those games I know are all great and milestone games that helped build where we're going or where we're at with games now, but it's like it was never the right time and right place for me to play a Zelda game.
Yeah.
And this was it.
Yeah.
And it's very, very good.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always nice, and it proves, and this year has proved. I mean, they've really been bad at any of making their games, but especially with a game like Zelda, they proved like they're willing to, as they did with Ocarina of Time back in the N64 days, reinvent what it meant, what a Zelda game meant. And prove that like no, when we do this, we can do it as good or better than anybody does it, and it's been really cool to see. I mean, look, they're Nintendo, so they have basically limitless time and resources to get what they need to get done. So they can't really compare them. And they tell these stories right in the behind the scenes mini docs they put out. They would stop development on the game like every 2 months or 3 months and play through the entire game up to that point. To quality control what they were doing as they were going.
It's amazing.
Most developers, they can't do that.
They can't do that, because they're faced with. I mean, it's also why it takes them forever to come out with their big first party games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is what makes me so excited for Odyssey.
Yeah,
especially knowing how much Zelda has changed.
Yeah,
it's like what the hell is that? Like even now, just looking at it, you're like Odyssey looks insane, but like I sit back and wonder like how insane is it going to be?
Yeah, we'll have to see. Good year for Nintendo, for sure.
Yeah.
Very, very good year for Nintendo.
Strong.
Very strong year. So those are our top fives. I'm going to read through. We had some listeners write in and give us their top fives. So I want to read those out since they spent the time. I have to go into profile and likes. Here we go. Sam wrote in at SK Suvak and says, Horizon Zero Dawn, Resident Evil 7, Nier Automata, Friday the 13th, and Lawbreakers. That's 1 to 5 for her. This other guy, Chuck, little known Chuck, at We Are Chucked on Twitter.
I think I've heard of him.
Number 5, Neo. Number 4, Lawbreakers. Number 3, Persona 5. Number 2, Resident Evil 7. Number 1, Players Unknown Battlegrounds.
Lawbreakers has come up a few. In the lists I've seen,
that game's only in beta. If we got pulled up for PUBG, then sorry, Lawbreakers.
I didn't call anybody out. First of all, Lawbreakers has a release date in a month. For sure, a release date.
Luciano wrote in and said, I've only played 2 games, but they both are amazing. Zelda Breath of the Wild and Injustice 2. Michael Zudro says, number 5, MLB The Show 17. Number 4, Players Unknown Battlegrounds. Number 3, Zelda. Number 2, Horizon Zero Dawn. Number 1, Resident Evil 7. Another new listener, at dead_Anchorus, writes in, says, number 5, Neo. Number 4, Dead Cells. Number 3, Resident Evil 7. Number 2, Horizon Zero Dawn. And number 1, Zelda. Bill Reeves says, Zelda Breath of the Wild, Horizon Zero Dawn, Friday the 13th, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and he included Splatoon 2 Test Fire. Can't wait for Splatoon 2.
That's like it's like less than 2 weeks for Splatoon.
It's very soon.
Yep.
Jesus, that crept up on me.
Yeah, it's very soon.
I gotta beat Zelda.
Lots of Switch games.
Rabbids comes out the month after.
That's right. Rabbids is August.
Man.
I have to buy it. I have to stop.
You gotta get a Switch, Kelsey.
You do.
Okay, I'm gonna I'm gonna post it online as soon as we're done.
What, that you want to switch?
No,
That's not the way it works, Kelsey. I mean,
no, to sell
maybe it'll
my
work for you like that.
I want to switch. Enter.
No, to sell
Why don't I
my-
have a Switch yet?
Oh, to sell your Wii U. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
Good call.
I took the picture. I just haven't like cleared my Wii U yet, so I've been procrastinating posting it. I think I'm just gonna post it, and if someone like contacts me, I'm just gonna clear all the games and the console right away.
Cool. Yeah, you need to get a Switch because you need to play Zelda, you need to play ARMS, you need to play Splatoon
Yeah,
2.
I want to play everything. I feel so left out.
Yeah, but thank you to everybody who wrote in with those lists at talking_games. You can also write into us games at talkingcomicbooks.com. Let us know your top 5 so far this year. Let us know what games you're looking forward to for the rest of the year because we're going to do a show about that in a couple of weeks as well. Head over to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/talkinggames videos, and check out all of our YouTube content. Great stuff from Sam, from Cody, from Hugh, from Justin, from myself, soon to be from Kelsey and Justin. A little Overwatch series starting up pretty soon.
It's going
Guy,
to be
girl,
called
and a payload.
Kelsey Plays as Diva is the name of the
Yes.
series, I think.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry. This is a series. Apparently, it's about Kelsey getting better at other Overwatch
Yes.
heroes, which I wasn't originally going to be about. It was just an excuse for me to play more Overwatch. But yes, Kelsey,
No, but I like that idea.
you
I
getting
think it'd
better
be
at other
fun.
heroes?
Yeah, I think it'd be funny.
Yeah, it actually turns into her being good enough to be better than you at Overwatch was what she said last week.
Yeah, I don't know where that came from. Like, Kelsey's so aggressive to me. I've never been anything but nice to Kelsey. She's not Jackie. I've only been like uber nice to Kelsey, and I hear Kelsey's like, I just want to be better than Justin. The only thing she was short of was like, I hate that guy.
It was like a competition that I made with myself.
Okay, that's fine.
I like it.
That's
I
the
like it.
twist. Like when you're done, she'll just like grip underneath her chin and pull a mask off, and she'll be like, "Hello."
So yeah, subscribe to us on YouTube to all those videos when they come out. You can also follow us twitch.tv/talkinggames, or now subscribe to us on Twitch, which I'm learning all about this Twitch stuff as we go myself. So basically, Twitch has like 2 tiers of things, right? Everybody can be followed, but only now affiliates and partners can be subscribed to. And subscribe to means you could subscribe for like $5 a month, and it basically supports us as streamers. But if you're a Amazon Prime,
Which 90% of the country is.
yeah, Amazon Prime member, you automatically have Twitch Prime.
You just got to sign up for it.
You just got to link your accounts because Amazon owns Twitch, and then you get a free subscription per month for one channel, and you have to re-up it every month. It comes due every month, and then re-upped. You can use that for us as well if you're so inclined.
It costs you nothing.
Yeah,
Except the 5 minutes maybe to do it.
Yeah, if even 5
If
minutes.
it even 5 minutes.
Yeah. So if you're not using yours for somebody else, please if you can use it on us. If you don't have Amazon Prime and you want to just give us money every month, that's awesome too. Yeah, it's a new thing for us. We got this affiliate program now, so it looks like things are starting to move. So it's pretty cool. And thank you to everyone who's done it already, because we have had a
bunch of people do
bunch of people do it already. So thank you so much for that. Well, if you're listening to this, definitely if you're listening to this, it's already passed. But Justin and I are doing Monster Closet tonight on twitch.tv/talkinggames. So new episode is already out though. It came out. Justin learned a big reveal on this past episode of Monster Closet.
I didn't learn a big reveal. It was confirmed to me.
Sorry, it was confirmed to you.
He got so smug.
He did. He was very smug, just like he did in Resident Evil 7 as well. He's 2 for 2 so far on guessing villains. But yeah, we have that's coming out every Wednesday. Heroes Hideout comes out every Monday with Cody and Sam.
The best part is when we play our next game, I'm going to be like, all these guys are the bad guys, and they're all going to be.
It's true. Next game when we play Outlast 2 and shit our pants the entire time we play. But Heroes Hideout with Cody and Sam is on Mondays. Ladies' Choice is on Tuesdays from Sam. Cody's putting out Friday the 13th videos every Friday. I'm doing the morning run Thursday and Friday mornings. So we got a lot of stuff.
Yeah, Kelsey and I will be starting A Guy, a Girl, and a Payload.
Mm-hmm.
We'll be recording our first episode on Monday. We're not sure when it's going up yet, but it will be there. And no, I had never heard of that TV show.
I know, I talked about it last week.
I know.
On the show. And Hugh and I will continue our Battlegrounds. Don't worry. We just have to find a time to do it. It's been a crazy crazy week and a half or so.
Yeah.
We will definitely get that done because we got to follow up our number 2 performance
Oh,
to see if we can get that.
Chill.
Get that number 1. Chill. And also,
I
if
was
you guys
saying it
haven't
for
seen
my benefit more than his.
if you guys haven't seen it yet, I cut together a trailer for our YouTube channel, and it's sort of like a highlight promo for all of our stuff. So check that out if you haven't done that yet. But yeah, you can follow me personally at Bobby Shortle, Justin,
Jiroke, JROAK.
Hugh,
At H_Paz.
and Kelsey.
Kelsamus, KELSSAMUS.
All right, so we're gonna wrap this thing up so we can start streaming and Hugh can actually go to bed. But yeah, I think that's gonna do it. Next week, we're without Justin again.
Aw.
So I'm sure it will
You're
be
devastated, Hugh. I know.
I miss you already.
suitably ridiculous. But in
be
2
back-
weeks, we'll come
I'll be
back and do
Back the week after.
and do our what we're looking forward to show in the rest of 2017. So
Great.
get those lists ready. But until that time, thank you, Justin,
Thank you, Hugh.
Thank you, Kelsey.
Thank you, Bobby.
and thank you to all of you who are listening. Until next time, be good to one another.